First of all, you look at the bilateral meetings between Shinzo Abe and Vladimir Putin.
Sure.
This relationship is really key across the region in terms of this desire, both by Russia and Tokyo, to contain this rise and influence of China.
Well, thank you very much indeed for having me here. Yes, this has been Mark's 22nd meeting between Mr. Abe, Prime Minister of Japan, and Mr. Putin. And they have been discussing about the possibility of what we call joint economic activities. But so far, I think nothing dramatic really happened in terms of discussions on the possibility of peace treaty between Japan and Russia. And I feel a little bit awkward that we have been talking about joint economic activities for the sake of, the confidence building, but really nothing happened in terms of, territorial issues, nor about this peace treaty. So I think, we have to accelerate our bilateral talks again with a view to, talking about territorial issues as well as peace treaty. Without a solution to territorial issues, Japan won't be ready to conclude the peace treaty with Russian Federation.
Is it crucial to have such a deal sooner rather than later to counterbalance China and, for example, its activities in the South China Sea?
Well, it is interesting that this time Mr. Xi Jinping, Chinese president, will be participating. And also it's really the very important moment in terms of denuclearization talks on Korean Peninsula. So the joint military drill to be taking place between Russia and China will be quite important sort of event, and we could see that's kind of gunboat diplomacy just next door to economic talks to be held in the Vladivostok, the economic forum.
Professor, this is Sherry. It's great to see you again. We just heard from Anne-Marie about the historic military drills between China and Russia, which of course will make neighbors in Asia more nervous, especially the Japanese. Is this going to have a material impact on trade relations in the region?
Well, actually, this is more about the military and security issues, by the fact that Russia and China will have joint military exercise. On the side of economic integration or economic cooperations in East Asia, I think Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, which is a 16-country endeavor to make East Asia free trade area, I think there has been a kind of momentum piling up to have kind of framework agreements towards the end of this year. And China has been making effort. Japan is making a kind of leadership role. So I hope that on the economics and politics to be divided, separated for the sake of further development in the economic cooperation, economic integration of the region.
And yet, that's not what we're seeing, especially from the U.S. administration with President Trump, where you separate both trade and geopolitics. How well positioned is Russia to increase trade in this environment with Japan and China?
Well, I think this is very much mobilized. I mean, Russia's movement has been very much mobilized with by the internal political situation in Russia. There has been a kind of piling up, increasing anti-Putin movement within Russia, and he has to counter that. So this time it is a very huge kind of demonstration effect. Mr. Putin is ready to deploy more than 1/3 of RAND troops to the far eastern part of Russia, and more than 1,000 aircraft has been mobilized from Russian Air Force to join this joint military drill in this region of Far East of Russia. So I think this is very much, the kind of demonstration show of Putin's power within Russian Federation.
Professor, President Trump also seems to be hinting that his next target could be fixing the trade relationship with Japan. How vulnerable is Japan if President Trump would go ahead with this drive?
I don't think Japan is vulnerable so much, particularly because Japan made a massive FDI, foreign direct investment, particularly in auto sectors, and providing maybe 1.5 million jobs in the United States, and also more than 3.7 million units of Japanese cars being produced in United States. So those are really the contribution to U.S. economy. More than 400 units of cars made in United States have been exported by Japanese manufacturers in the United States. So all of these taken into consideration, I don't think there won't be too much sort of hassles on the part of Japan. And also towards the end of this month, there will be Japan-U.S. summit talks to be held in the United States, next to the side by side to the UN General Assembly, and hope that there would be a kind of deal to be struck in order to mitigate the misgivings of this U.S. protectionism against Japan and also against other countries. Those are considered to be allies to United States.
Professor, we've seen high-level talks between Beijing and Tokyo recently, and it sort of ignited hopes that maybe there'll be a stronger trading relationship. I want to throw up this chart just for our viewers to show kind of the picture when it comes to Japan's trade surplus with the US there in white, steadily increasing, and the trade balance with China, or the trade deficit, I should say, with China. Despite the historical as well as diplomatic tensions between Japan and China, do you see an argument that there should be a stronger economic relationship there?
I think in terms of the Japan-China relations, I think it has been dramatically improved. And I think, as I said, you see the East Asia Free Trade Agreement, what we call RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, the negotiation has been picking up some of the momentum, and hope that Japan-China economic relations, or economic leadership for that matter, could be displayed more extensively towards the end of this year.